Okay, so I'm back up and running. Hopefully, hopefully that won't happen again. So, if everybody's willing to come back, I don't know. We'll see. I don't know how it all works with connecting, but my live stream seems to be functioning okay. I know there's some issues. I need to take some time and mess with my settings, but for now, seems to be working well. So let me go ahead and open up Ilka's piece. And let's see. Okay, so we've got Ilka with Bagatelle number 2. Let me get it over here. And there we go. So, yeah, hopefully the video doesn't freeze now. And, yeah. Ilka, I don't know if you're still on here, because it showed everybody has dropped off, but there's still people here. So I don't know how it all works out with showing me who's on and who's not and who's chatting. But let's go ahead and listen to the piece first. You know what? I'm going to switch from Note Performer, so I don't like the Note Performer piano. So let's start again. Okay, so Ilka, if you are still listening, once again, well done. I think you wrote a very nice piece here. There are some little things that I'm going to point out. One, I think your analysis is wrong, or I would say after I went on all that side tangent about if your analysis makes sense to you, but in a sense, this right here doesn't feel like a 1. It feels still like a 5. And I think one of the issues is that even though that you've got the D up here, it feels like a passing D as opposed to that is the notes in the chord. And I would say that the main issue that I have with this one little spot here is holding over this 5 across the bar. Something about it feels like it's not the right movement at that time. And I'm not sure what about it. Let me listen one more time to this spot. Sound-wise, I think it sounds fine. I think this is throwing me off. And just calling it that, but realizing that this is just a passing note here. It's not really what's the core of the harmony. I think if you were to just play out the block chords, you have this. Oh, so, right? It's kind of you've got a little bit more motion in the bass, but it feels like you go basically 5, right? That would be the harmony kind of in block chords. But you may just want to look at this and say, how can you kind of make this feel a little bit smoother? I feel like with this C sharp here, it doesn't necessarily want to go down there. It almost feels like you do want to go more like that, and then in that case you would call it a 1. So right, if that's what you meant, then I would stay away from that 5 in the bass. That feels like it flows a little bit better. The other thing that is a little bit confusing to the ear is going straight to a 5 of 5 chord. So if you're trying to affect a modulation, you've got, I like this, but now here, it makes it feel like we are actually modulating to C major instead of F major. So changing that to that right there, I think will still and I think the reason why it's so striking to the ear is because you have a cross relation, right? You have B flat here in another voice and B major here, and the voice leading between the two is not very smooth. So if you wanted to do that, maybe do that instead, and put the note somewhere else. Well, let's see, probably. Maybe even simplify it for a second. Right? That way you have the smooth voice leading. That progression doesn't want to go from here up to here. It kind of wants to go by half step up to that C. So this is all good down here. I like that you changed the texture. I don't think Sibelius pulls it off very well, It gives you kind of a hard thing, but a real pianist would, I think, give it a little bit more nuance in the way those notes are shaped. So I don't really have an issue with that. That's staying away from those Sibelius isms, and knowing what it can handle, or what a real player would actually give that sound. Now the other thing here, and this you probably want to check, just how does this feel playing wise, but you've got, let's see, right? That's a jump. I'm talking right here, and then here. That's something, there's nothing wrong with it. I just would say, look at it and ask yourself, is there an easier way, to get the same feel, right? And the same intent, original musical intent, with something that maybe is a little bit easier to play. So, maybe even taking out that D right there, all you have to do now is shift your hand a little bit, and your index finger can still hit. I know you can't see what my hand is doing, but imagine this is with your pinky, and this is your pointer finger, right? I can just shift my hand now like this. Instead of, if I move the triad, I have to shift everything over. And that means I could end up missing with my pinky, right? I can play that a lot faster than... Well, I mean, I suppose I can play them both, but one feels like it's easier to pull off, and the intent, the musical intent, I think is still there, because you're hitting these Ds, they're very solid. You have a D in the melody. So that D is not necessary to get the chord quality. And same with the, right? And so I personally like to take on the point of view of the player. What is the player going to be thinking about? What is the player going to have to really work on? And in a sense, you want to, if you're going to put some difficult things in your music, you want those difficult things to be important. And if they're not critical to the sound, find an easier way to write it so that they don't have to spend so much time, practicing it. And maybe it's something as simple as that's the sound you're looking for, and you don't necessarily need that F there, Or another option, which it may not look as clean, but you could add that F in a second voice in the right hand. So I'll do this. Oop, that's not where I wanted to put it. And put that down there. Obviously, it's not the cleanest notation, right? However, oh, you know what? I put that in the wrong spot. That need to be here. Like that. Playability-wise, you can hit that a little bit faster, a little bit easier. Right? Now, there may be a way, I'm sure there's a way in Sibelius to have this actually be crossed over so that it's part of the other, chord, but clean up the notation. I mean, it's one of those things that you'd probably have to dive into the, Behind Bars by Elaine Gould, or go over to the music, what's the group on Facebook? The Music Engraving Group. I would recommend being a part of that group, because it's a good place to ask these kind of questions. How could you clean up that notation, make it playable, but indicate that that's going to be in the right hand? Other than that, I think you did an excellent job, and keep up the good work. If you've got any specific questions about the piece, you ask it here. But if you're just looking for my feedback, that's about it. It's really looking for how can I keep my same musical intent, but maybe make it a little bit easier to play. So yeah, and if anybody else has any pieces they want to send over, this is kind of your last chance. Otherwise, we'll probably be calling it for the day. I apologize for the technical difficulties. Kind of the nature of the game. Sometimes things just don't seem to work very well. I'm going to look at my internet connection, and I'm still getting the little yellow stream health light thing. I think it's a stream resolution issue, so I don't know if there's a way I can make the resolution a little bit smaller, but otherwise, yeah. So it looks like nobody's got any other pieces to submit, so I'm going to go ahead and say a little bit about art of composing. If you are interested in what I teach here and you really want to lock in these techniques, you should check out my Music Composition 101 course, Fundamentals. It goes over all these techniques, goes over how to think about harmony, melody, form, accompaniment, how it all works together so that you can actually sit down and write pieces that make sense. A big part of it is just taking the time to lock the skills in and taking the time to put them into practice in short pieces like this Bagatelle. So, guys like Ilka here, I appreciate showing up to all the symposiums, and I can tell, I can see the progression in Ilka's composition technique and style from when he started out in the academy to now. I mean, it's a world of difference. So yeah, I highly recommend it, and hopefully the students in the course would recommend it for people who are on the fence. But it's just I think it's one of the few courses out there that really breaks down in a practical way for composers. I mean, a lot of people talk about functional harmony, but not necessarily how does functional harmony interact with the form and with the melody, and how do you bring it all together. And I was talking to another student, a former student recently, actually yesterday we had a little Skype session, and I feel like the next step is the models. So what he told me was that he he locked it in place. He could figure out how to do small ternary form. But then when he looked at 201, which is my sonata form course, he felt like there was a gap between the two. And what I realize is, at the point that you can write your own pieces in small ternary form, the question is, what did great composers do with that information? Because they use different terminology, but in a sense, the thought processes are very similar. And I think modeling great pieces is where it's at. So this first one, I'm going to be releasing in an email series, but then I plan on just doing a bunch of models, like basically sitting down all the Chopin nocturnes kind of thing and breaking them down and doing little mini courses in the Academy that take you through each model and the possibilities. Because when you really start to look at this, and what he said to me was really interesting yesterday. He said he started to get bored of the form, and I realize when you start to get bored of a form, that is a sign in your brain that you understand that form in a very deep way, right? For me, I've exercised small ternary form so much that it's like I don't necessarily sit down and write a lot of pieces in small ternary form because sometimes it can feel a little bit boring to me. But that's a good sign. That means that I really have stretched the limits on that one style and that one form, and I've integrated it enough that that will come out naturally when I need it. And when I don't need it, I can just leave it in kind of my back pocket. So let's see. Bug 5654 saying something to add about your course. It breaks it down into pieces you can do when time is extremely limited, doing something every day instead of needing big blocks of time. Yes, absolutely. One of the major benefits to small ternary form, and why I think it's just one of the perfect little vehicles for practicing your composition, it gives you several key things that you have to do, but you can do them in a really small amount of time. Including up to, like 30 minutes. I used to sit down a lot and do these little 30-minute compositions where you set a timer and you tell yourself, I'm going to do this in 30 minutes. And just setting the timer, you end up finishing really quickly. But take, for instance, this Chopin piece here. You'll notice it's got 4 systems on there, but the piece itself, the actual music is about 3 pages. And it's because he's doing small ternary form, but he doesn't put repeat signs. He writes it all out. But the actual raw material, I mean, you're talking an exposition, a contrasting middle, those two get repeated a lot, and then he's got a little coda theme at the end that he repeats once. So, and I wrote it out as two like raw material things here because they're different enough in the harmonic progression in the middle that I wanted to stress that they're kind of 2 different things. However, I could have condensed it down to one coda that gets repeated. But really, when you get down to it, if you want to write a piece like Chopin's Nocturne, this one, right? You're talking about you have to write a main theme, a contrasting middle, and then figure out how to tack on a little bit at the end. And it's just a matter of how do you repeat those things in the right way, and how do you take it from one key area to the next. That's what makes it sound like Chopin. So on the basic level, you're writing, 2 major thematic units that are 8 measures each, normatively 8 measures. I mean, here he's got them as 4, but each measure is kind of slow and it feels like 2 measures. So all that being said, if you really want to lock in the fundamentals, my 101 course, I really believe there's not a lot out there that, or there's really nothing out there on the internet that I think covers the same breadth of material for the price that you get it. So check it out, Music Composition 101. I think it's good stuff. And with that, I will see everybody next week, hopefully with some fewer technical difficulties. It may have been this new program I installed to get my camera looking nicer, which hopefully everybody thinks it looks a little bit nicer. I think it does. I think the quality of the picture is a bit better. But hopefully everybody has a good weekend, and I'll see everybody next Friday. And then following that, I'm actually going to be going on a little vacation, so I probably will be taking a few weeks off from Symposium. So it's a good time to get your practice in and just work on your music. So I'll talk to everybody later. Next week is a Saturday evening one. So have a fun week composing and thinking about music and doing stuff. I don't know. Talk to you later. Bye.